Okay, so before I start today's video, I just want to thank you. Thank you for watching the Final Fantasy Platinum series, whether it's your first one here at 6 or you started off with Final Fantasy 1. Regardless, it's been an absolute pleasure going back to these classics. Some of these games being my favorite of all time, playing through them, completing them, scratching and clawing to get the Platinum trophy, and then taking that experience, getting it together and throwing it at you in the form of a video. But the most gratifying thing of it all is going through the comment section and reading all of your experiences. It has just been an overall good time, and we ain't stopping here. Even though I've just completed Final Fantasy 6 out of 6 in the Pixel Remaster collection, we are venturing forth through the mainline series minus 11. We're going to get all the platinums, and we're going to have side quests of our own and doing the side games and getting those platinums, also making videos and talking about them all. Some really good things to look forward to. So if you're sticking with me, again, thank you very much. Now, with that all being said, what is up, guys? Jen here. Hope you are all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Of course, I've got you covered with timestamps in the description down below, so if you want to skip to a certain section, feel free. If you want to speed up the video, feel free. Whatever floats your boat. All I ask is for you to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you like the content and want to see more, hit the notification bell if you want to be notified of that content, and of course, get involved with the comment section down below. So let's just get straight into it. Final Fantasy 6. My first time playing Final Fantasy 6, because we are going to quickly dive into my brief history of Final Fantasy 6, was much like Final Fantasy 4 and 5 through the anthology version on the PlayStation, was Final Fantasy 6 on the PlayStation as well. It was my first time playing it, and this one was pretty unique because it came with a Final Fantasy 10 demo disc. I don't think I've ever touched it because I got Final Fantasy 10 at the same time. So Final Fantasy 6, I've never completed it until today, alright? Because I played through this, I must have played it last out of the 3 games on the PlayStation. So it was 5 first and 4, and then finishing off with 6. But I got to the World of Ruin and I did not know what to do. And this was back in the day of the early days of the internet, back on the dial-up modems, and I just didn't have the time or the energy to look up guides, and there wasn't a strategy guide available at the time, so I just called it quits there. I did revisit it with the Pixel Remaster on Steam because Square Enix kindly provided me with a code to kind of make a video on the game, but I honestly only played up to the Opera House version to get the footage and kind of throw an opinion on my experiences till there. This is going to be the whole deal with this one because, of course, I've completed it, I've 100%ed it, and I've got the platinum. There are also other versions of Final Fantasy 6. We can't forget its debut as Final Fantasy 3 on the SNES. I think that's a version that everyone looks to play when they want to play Final Fantasy 6, just because of how untouched it is. But then, of course, we have the Steam and mobile ports that we got that are delisted now. No, we were not going to talk about those. No, we're talking about the advanced version, which came with a few extra dungeons and a few extra summons, I believe. And I think a lot of people are fans of that version. I've not played any of those versions. It's strictly been the PlayStation version, the Pixel Remaster on Steam, and then here on the PlayStation 4. So let's talk Final Fantasy 6 in general. The evolution continues with Final Fantasy 6, and I truly think they hit the peak with Final Fantasy 6, especially with me playing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 back to back. Going on to 6, I really felt that this was their ultimate stride, their ultimate flex of everything that they learned, and it was a really good time. So the job system from Final Fantasy 5, as good as it was, did not make its return here in Final Fantasy 6. Instead, we kind of went back to what it was in Final Fantasy 4, each character having like a class, but we had a few things to shake that up and kind of weave in some of the job system elements with relics and summons. Now, relics go on to become accessories in the later titles, but the good thing about relics is it kind of teaches you abilities. It either increases your statistics, or it might come with like an additional kind of trait. For example, you might be able to run a little bit faster, you might have auto haste, you might be able to wield 2 weapons. All of those traits that we're familiar with from the job system in Final Fantasy V were kind of reintroduced in relics and then some. Really kind of good to mix and match, and the fact that you can equip 2, you kind of get some really cool powerful combos with the relics. But we got summons as well, and summons were just as important, especially because no character was restricted to a certain moveset. They all had their own individual ability, and all of those abilities were great, especially if you go out and collect all of their abilities that they have. But summons introduced a system where you can learn spells. So each summon came with a set of spells that you would learn the longer you have it equipped, and then once you've kind of mastered the summon, you can equip another summon known as espers in this game. You can then learn more spells as well. You collect all the summons, you're going to get all the spells, and you can get all the spells for all characters, and then get some insane combos combined with your relics and the movesets of that character. So the relics and the summons really brought a bit of customization, kind of like a reminiscent of a job system, but customize your characters to the way you want your characters to be. So kudos to the relic and the summons introduced in this game, because it just opened up the playing field just a little bit more with those. Let's briefly touch on story and characters. Of course, I think you know what I'm going to say when it comes to this. This is one of the best Final Fantasy stories of all time, especially playing it all the way through and really taking in each character's story as well. It really hits its peak when you get to the world of Ruin and kind of go through all these characters' stories and really invest time in there. They hit a lot of points, and a lot of kind of things that they deal with is incredible, and the way it's written is just, I really enjoyed the story and characters of Final Fantasy VI. And if you're watching this and have not played it before, I'm going to stop there for you guys, because I really think you should experience it, and me experiencing this kind of fully for the first time was a pleasure in itself. The world of Final Fantasy VI is not like the worlds that we've had in previous games. It's kind of the same world, and then it kind of changes over time. I'll leave it at that. But is it a good world to explore? I really feel it wasn't as good to explore as the previous titles, but they definitely had some really cool landmarks and some memorable locations within the world. But traversing through the world map, I just wasn't getting the same feeling that I got with, for example, Final Fantasy V and 4. But the world as a whole and the way it kind of connects to the story, it's definitely a thumbs up. I think when it comes to exploration, it's a little bit lacking in that department, but that might just be me. While we're on the subject of the world, let's talk about dungeons, because we've had a bit of a waving kind of road with dungeons. It all started with Final Fantasy II with the way too many random encounters and empty rooms, to then get into Final Fantasy IV, it hitting its stride and dungeons being pretty decent. Final Fantasy V I didn't really touch on, but I think it's more or less the same. But I think Final Fantasy VI dungeons are just awesome, accompanied with the music, and we'll get into that in just a second. It's a good time. You can really kind of gain some experience in these dungeons while you're finding different enemies to kind of go across. And what made these dungeons unique as well is some of the instances going into these dungeons, you would have the party system, which was briefly introduced in Final Fantasy V in one section of the game, where you kind of split the party in two and select who's going to be in each party and what they do. It happens a lot more frequently in Final Fantasy VI, and it kind of introduces a puzzle element to the dungeons, because you might have to take party 1, do something, step on a certain switch, for then party 2 to then go through a door, to then go through to another switch. They stand on that switch, and then you bring party 1 back up to it, but then you realise party 2 needs to go back to another section. So how do you do it? It's really cool to work out, and I think it really brings another level to the dungeons of Final Fantasy, and I had a really good time with that. So let's talk about music. The music in Final Fantasy VI is, in one word, incredible. I do put it below Final Fantasy V on a personal level for me when it comes to the soundtrack, but that doesn't discredit whatsoever. It is an incredible soundtrack with some really memorable music in there, and the fact that we can flip between the original soundtrack and the Pixel Remaster soundtrack, especially for Final Fantasy VI, is good, because I do believe that both of these versions are just as good as each other. So from music to combat, and we're kind of going to go dive a little bit deeper with the relics and the summons here. We've touched on that the fact that these kind of really kind of customize your teams from what you can learn and what can you kind of bring to battle. I had a lot of fun experimenting with the relics and the summons, more so the relics than the summons, because it's just learning them and then moving on to the next one. But with the relics, it's finding two relics that really go well with each other. And I think at the end of the game, I think I had Celeste with you could attack 4 times, and then I had the Genji glove as well, so then I could attack 8 times combined with the ultimate weapon and Excalibur. You can see the amount of damage I was probably doing, but that kind of is just a sneak peek of just messing around with the relics, and it really bring in a new layer to the combat of Final Fantasy in Final Fantasy VI. One thing I did notice, and I don't know if it's just me, did the combat feel a little bit slower in Final Fantasy VI? I do feel like the ATB was at its slowest, even though when I had it at very fast speed, I do feel like it was filling up just ever so slightly compared to like Final Fantasy 4 and 5 before it. But again, that might just be me, and you can let me know in the comment section below. Now, I praised Final Fantasy V for its endgame and its side content, but Final Fantasy VI truly takes it to a new level with so much dialogue and story interweaved into that side content. There could be dialogue that you could completely brush over and miss in your playthrough of Final Fantasy VI, and the fact that there's so much of it and it's so narratively driven, it really was a treat to go through and kind of go and find the side content and what it had to offer. The end game, again, you're going to have what your Final Fantasy is known for, your super bosses, your hidden characters, and everything else in between. But the end game and the side content for Final Fantasy VI really kind of raises Final Fantasy VI in a lot of people's opinions, especially mine, and it gets to that point where what game can you suggest to me, Jen, when it comes to the Pixel Remaster collection? I can only buy one. What can I get? And I'm always torn between Final Fantasy V and 6, and I would always go to 5 because of the fun you can have with the job system and the replayability of Final Fantasy V. But Final Fantasy VI, after playing it and completing it and doing everything and experiencing everything, I really think if you want like a story and a characters you care about and a world that might not be great to explore, but a world you care about as well, and everything else in between when it comes to side content and endgame, it's such a hard thing to do. Like, if you want the story and the characters, Final Fantasy VI, if you want the gameplay, Final Fantasy V, but then I have seen relics and summons and really got into that, and it kind of like, the scales are both there, and I still can't make a decision, and I'm sure I will have to make a decision because we will be ranking the first 6 games in a future video, so something to look out for. But yes, let's just kind of leave that there and talk about it at a later date. Right, we are now at the Pixel Remaster changes of Final Fantasy VI, and usually I'll sound like a broken record ever since the Final Fantasy 1 video, but Final Fantasy VI brought a few other additions, some quality of life, or maybe just some enhancements that we really wanted for the Pixel Remaster collection that we didn't get in the Steam version. And first of all, that is the credits in the intro. I've seen a lot of people, including myself, that was like, whoa, this intro doesn't feel the same without the kind of credits appearing as you're walking towards Nash. It is here in the Pixel Remaster collection, and it is a welcome addition. Another addition, and the only other extra addition that I could find, was when you're hunting for Death Gaze, which is like a super boss, especially if you're wanting to complete your bestiary, you're going to be wanting to find it. But in the Pixel Remaster for Steam and any versions beforehand, it was randomly somewhere with no visible marker on the world map, and you'd have to do certain tricks to try and find it, or just kind of aimlessly go everywhere to find it. But in the Pixel Remaster on consoles, Death Gaze is very visible in like a black orb that you go towards, and then you can fight Death Gaze and do all your business that you need to do with it. So another welcome addition. Now we are going to go on to the broken record kind of additions to the Pixel Remaster collection, and that is going to be, of course, the music of Final Fantasy VI is here in a music player. You can listen to the classic. I believe this is based on the SNES version, not the PlayStation version, though I could be wrong, but you can switch between that and obviously the current remastered soundtrack, and all of them are there, including all different languages of the Opera House. But if you want to re-listen to the tracks, they are here in the music player. Of course, we have the art, and there is so much art and a lot of recognizable art. I really feel like going through the art of Final Fantasy VI is some of the most iconic art of Final Fantasy as a whole you can find here in that art gallery. And of course, the best system, a system that I'm going to miss as we go through the PS1 games, is the bestiary system. You can look at all the monsters you've encountered. You can then scale the world map to see if there's any question marks of ones that you may have missed. You can then kind of click on it and fight against any kind of arrangements of that monster that Final Fantasy VI has to offer, and you can do that with an early team or a late game team if you really want to kind of challenge yourself in that respect. It is really going to be a feature I'm going to miss going forward, but I'm going to just give credit where credit's due. The bestiary system that introduced in the Pixel Remaster collection as a whole is something that they just need to have in every single Final Fantasy. I'm sure they'll find a way to do it. They've done it for like Final Fantasy VII Remake. I don't know if they're going to be doing it for Final Fantasy 16. Hopefully they will. It's a really great system and really kind of makes you want to kind of go out and fight every single monster the game has to offer. Another system that I've absolutely loved in the Pixel Remaster collection is the map system. The fact that you can kind of go through all of the locations you visit, see if you've got all the chests and the missing items, see what shops they have to offer, and kind of zoom in and scroll around and see if there's any nooks and crannies that you might not notice firsthand. It's all there in the map system. And I think another thing that I'll kind of tie into the map system is any hidden passages that you enter. Once you've entered it, they are visible. So once you've kind of gone in there and you want to find out where it goes, hit square on the PlayStation and your map will come up and you can see where that secret passage takes you. It's another kind of tie-in with the map system, and it's something that I'm truly gonna miss going forward. Of course, the console versions of the Pixel Remaster version comes with boosts. So we have the encounters, toggling them on and off. We have the XP going up to 4 or going all the way down to 0. We have Gil going up to 4 or going down to 0. And then we have the magic abilities that you can learn from summons. So if you want to increase the speed you kind of level up with a certain Esper, you can turn that up to 4. If you don't want to learn anything from it at all, you can turn it down to 0. I don't know why you want to do that, but the option is there, and it's always nice to mess around with boosts. Me myself, I think I just turned Gil up to 2 and I turned up the magic abilities up to 2 and I had a good time. So there you go, boosts. You've been very good during the Pixel Remaster collection, and I'm probably not going to talk about you again. So yes, let's move on to the trophies, and of course it will follow a similar trait to the other Pixel Remaster games when it comes to treasure, the bestiary and Gil. Is very much the same, but we do have some extra ones in there, and I've got to take a moment to just say that I nearly messed up on this completely. I went to get my last bestiary entry, which needs you to go reload your finished save and go to the Colosseum and then fight a certain enemy. I beat that certain enemy with a lot of RNG that involves as well. If your character picks the wrong abilities, it's going to take a long time, but I got it, and then the trophy didn't pop. And my heart fell on the floor and I didn't know what to do. So I went to look in my bestiary and I seen that I had one monster that was missing. Luckily, it happens just after the first point of no return, which I had a save file for. So within 5 minutes, I had that bestiary entry unlocked and I got the platinum, and I was very, very happy. But more trophies that are involved with Final Fantasy VI are very kind of like character focused. So for example, we have collecting all of Edgar's tools, learning all of Saban's blitzers, Cian's bushidos, and everything else in between, including like Strago's blue magic and Gal's leap abilities. Very easy to do if you kind of leave it till the end game. But there is one in particular that requires a lot of RNG or a lot of patience, and that's the Master Gambler one. Lucky for me, I got this just by the off chance while I was auto battling with him. So overall, this is a trophy list that you kind of want to pay attention to. There are missables with locations, like I gave you the example. You want to save at certain points of no return, so you've got a save file to go back to just in case you do miss them. I think you'll be all good. If you want to follow a guide, but if you're kind of going in there blind and kind of want to try and get everything, just pay attention to your characters and all the abilities. Try and get all of the monsters in a certain area before moving on, and of course look for all those items and hidden chests across the world. I really enjoy getting this platinum actually, and I think it's probably my favourite platinum out of the 6 games that I've played, and I can finally say that I've got every single platinum in the Pixel Remaster collection. And that brings us to the end of our video. The next video, I can tell you now, will be Final Fantasy VII, and I'm going to start introducing a few side games here and there as well. I'm also probably, most likely, going to start streaming over on Twitch, and I'll have a link to my Twitch down below if you want to kind of like follow on there so you're notified when I do go live. But I will be posting that I will go live on here and on Twitter. So hopefully now we can start getting into some of these beefier trophy lists, a lot more difficult trophy lists and a lot more time consuming, and I'm hoping I can make it just a good time for us all. So all being well, I'll be seeing you in the next video with Final Fantasy VII. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you watching, and until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.